Okay, what's your name?
My name is Patrick.
Where do you live?
I live in Boston currently.
Wow, and you got here.
Yeah, I left early. So everyone here is a creative who's had periods of high productivity and low productivity, and my question now is, how do you recharge your engines once they kind of run dry?
Planning cruises.
Heroin. Low productivity? I'm running at 100% at all moments, pal.
Well, are we going down this way?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Well, I'll answer briefly and sincerely. When I finished the last book of the trilogy of books of fake facts that I was writing, and when the final thing that I did was to record the audiobook and then the paperback tour, and then a special based on the stand-up that I was doing around that book. So that was all done, and I realized that I was now out of material, I was out of projects, I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was when John Roderick and I were having breakfast and wondering now what we do. And I thought that it would be a good thing to just book an hour at this small bar and performance space in Brooklyn every week for an indefinite period of time that I would have to fill up each week with new-ish material. And so that's what I was doing, because otherwise I wouldn't create anything new at all unless I had that terror that there was a stage that was waiting for me. And it's a really small room, and we've been having a good time. Right, Alice? Right. And so that is, I think setting an arbitrary deadline is great for yourself, but one of the things that we discovered in that conversation, John Robert, was when we were talking about how, you can buy a gym membership, but you'll never go. You need to have some sort of external deadline, someone who is waiting on you, some cruise that is waiting on you, some other person who's going to be disappointed if you don't do it, and then you will make new stuff whether you want to or not, because your body will respond to that stress, and something will come out of you. You know what I mean.
Yeah, black file. The dramatically reduced productivity. It's all right. It's not your fault. It started before I met you. But I believe that the solution to my problem is to stop taking myself seriously and taking my work too seriously, and lighten up and just do a thing a week. I think Jonathan's thing a week thing was a brilliant way of putting yourself in.
Taking yourself seriously is an amazing procrastination tool.
It's terrible, and I am an incredibly self-serious person, and every time I start to write something, I critique it to death before it's even halfway done. And that isn't good, but I'm not able to master myself. So, writing that song right before coming on the cruise, and I was just describing to these guys today, I actually finished the chorus of my new song last night as I was pacing back and forth backstage. I changed some of the lyrics right before. So that was the kind of risk of just like, well, if this is no good, there is no turning back now. And I wish I could do that more, or I aspire to do it more.
I really don't have anything to add because my answer was essentially what John Hodgman said, but not as eloquently of setting an external deadline. I always grew up being I work best under pressure because I refuse to work under any other process. But it is extremely helpful, and as John said, with the deadline you will create something, and it may not be the best thing you ever created, but you will create something, and that's, knowing is half the battle.
I think it's important to also, the idea of recharging is important, not just making yourself create, but finding a way to become interested in creating. And so for me, I really get excited when I find a thing that I can work on, a project or a direction that is just interesting to me, and it doesn't have anything to do with any potential output that I might or might not have. So, I'll just find a piece of software that makes cool noises and spend, an entire week just twiddling knobs and making cool sounds, not trying to create anything, but just playing.
But note that your version of recharging in that scenario is still making. As
No,
opposed
but
to just going to a beach or whatever.
yeah, of course. But I think that as it's important to, you don't always have to make something and publish something. Sometimes it's enough to just find something that you really want to make and explore it. And if it leads to something that you feel like is publishable, that's great. But if not, then you've just sort of used your creative brain, and that feels very good, even if you don't ultimately have a product at the end of it.
I'd like to add something very quickly because I just blurted out something stupid instead of actually engaging this question. Like that, I find recharging to be very, very helpful. And the way I did it when I was at the end of one part of my career and looking to start something else, and it was looking out into the void and seeing nothing there, I went to the most remote place on the planet that I could find and stayed there alone for a month. And just let my brain do the work. Well, I did paddle around on an island and walk on a beach, and it worked. And I came up with an idea for a book that did pretty well, and I had a wonderful time writing it. And lasted another 2 years of my life. There was my career right in front of me from disengaging for a month on a beach.
So a month on a tropical island, is that what you're suggesting? Yeah, that sounds great for everyone. Thanks. Eminently workable.
Storm, did you have anything to add to Paul's response?
Yes, certainly deadline and recharge are number one. Number two, Paul and I have something, this is sort of a negative factor that can keep you from trying. We have a shorthand for it. We call it schmoey schmohead. And it refers to...
How is that a shorthand?
Just take it on faith. That's what it's called, and there's a good reason for it. But the idea is when you sit down and say, okay, it's time for me to write the thing, to do my thing, that there's the voice in your head when you have an idea and you sit down to do it, it says, no, that kind of sucks. You know, this is a stupid idea. Don't listen to it. It might be that that idea does suck, but in the process of trying to punch through, you will get to the place, or you won't. But certainly if you don't try, you will not.
How much of your and Paul's relationship is conducted in baby talk?
82.3%.
Certainly a disturbing amount, which is anything more than 0.
82.3. I just had, I'm sorry, this is a subject that is interesting to me. And so I'm going to speak just a little bit more on it, and now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, right. A lot of, when you're starting out, you have this, and you're just starting your first big creative enterprise, you've probably stored up about 15 to 30 years worth of ideas. And so if you're lucky and you're disciplined and you stick to it, that stuff will tumble out of you and you'll feel great. And then you'll reach a point where a number of us are sort of facing, where you've kind of worked through all of those ideas that you've had since college or your youth or whatever, and now you feel like you've got no ideas. And the reality is you never have no ideas. I don't know if you're ever facing this sort of thing, but even if you feel profoundly that you have no ideas, it's not true. And Linda Barry, when we did that Portland show, the Livewire show, said something that was really meaningful to me, which is, because she deals with this stuff a lot, this issue of procrastination and feeling stuck or whatever. You just have to get your hands moving. And now I really am talking about creating and not masturbation. Whatever it is you do, you have to, even if you think you have nothing there, even if it's just typing, just start typing some words. Something unlocks, and you'll eventually go into a space where you'll find an idea. And I'll say that Sarah Chickazool said something really good on her podcast about not talking about what you're working on when you're working on it, because I lost a whole idea. Like when you talk about something that you like, you get the pleasure of making it. I think this is what you said, right? You get the pleasure of making it without making it. And once you've burned that off, making it becomes this horrible chore, and you just put it aside, and it's never fresh again anymore. So don't talk and get started. The end.
Loose lips, sink ships. I think a lot of stuff has already been addressed eloquently about the long game of being disciplined in your creativity. For me, the more recent challenges and sort of revelations have come about daily creativity, how to recharge on a daily basis. Because I found myself, even though I'm pretty good about deadlines and keeping up a certain amount of work and feeling creative, having kind of miserable days as I create, just like, gotta get through this, I can feel the gears grinding, and not taking a lot of joy in the process, and remembering here and there that I used to. So what I got a nice little sideways eye-opener from Zen meditation, where I've always wanted to meditate. You know, it always seems like something people say, oh, you should meditate. You know, it's good for you. It does everything. Even if you don't believe in anything mystical, it'll lower your blood pressure. But it always seemed like a big commitment to me that I didn't really want to do. I didn't want to put on the accoutrements or learn, you know, the Hindu gods or anything. But when somebody talked about it
I find the headgear to be rather burdensome in meditation.
What's that?
I find the headgear to be rather burdensome.
Yeah. And the position's a little hard on the back. But when somebody mentioned that you could meditate in little increments in the day, just take like a couple of deep breaths, it seemed like there was a correlative to that about the creative process, that if you just sort of cleanse your palate occasionally during the day. I will sit at the desk and try to solve a problem and just kind of get myself miserable and not get any closer to getting something good on paper. And the thing that has really helped more than anything, honestly, is getting a dog. Because, you know, my wife works during the day and I have to take care of this puppy and walk him occasionally, and it's just the simplest thing, and it takes me away from the work, and I get a little oxygen, and I get a little movement, and back to the desk, and it feels like a whole different world rather than that world of must solve goddamn problems. Suddenly it's, you know, kind of fun again. The dog has provided me with another point of view on life, which is simpler and nicer and likes to run around.
And do you walk the dog on your tropical island or what?
Yeah. We will retire there.
So dog is your co-pilot.
Well said.
I stole that from Jason Ritter.
Unfollow!
One element I think we haven't talked about is, at least for anything that's really performance, well, I think all art is made for someone, but especially if it's performance-based, I get a little refresher by trying to remember that it's like a relationship, and that when I'm sitting at the computer writing, it's not all about me, and maybe I should do something for you guys, and try to think about it from the audience's perspective. And that gives me a little bit of a refresher, because when I'm really getting tense about exactly how I want this joke to be perfect, you stop and think about, like, well, just really imagine, how is an audience going to react to this joke? You start to remember, they will not really be aware that he made the wrong choice between duck or goose in that punchline.
That can make a big difference, actually, sometimes. Really big difference.
You're very specialized, Mike Berman. Very specialized. But yeah, so you've set yourself up for failure. So if you're not thrilled with yourself like that, I think it helps to think about it from the outside perspective.
So there's two things that I have to do. I have to find inspiration so that I want to make a thing, and then I have to get out of my own way so that I have the energy to make a thing. And I'm at this interesting sort of point in my life and in my career where I'm sort of an actor and I'm sort of a writer, and for a long time I thought that I had to choose a particular direction and just like give up one or the other. And I hate going to movies, and a lot of TV is stupid and annoying to me. And I find that I used to be able to recharge by like just sitting down and watching TV. And these days, if I'm going to do that, I actually go to Netflix, and I've been watching these movies from like the 70s when they were really about storytelling, and they didn't mind spending an hour setting a thing up. And I find that when I'm watching that stuff, I'm not really paying attention to the movie. I'm actually kind of thinking about whatever story it is that I want to tell. Like it kind of occupies my conscious mind. So I sort of get inspired by that. I do the same thing. I can't really do that with reading. I'm sure you do this thing where you're reading and you realize that you've turned like 7 pages, you have no idea what happened because you were thinking about something else. That's actually really good for me because it means that I'm working on whatever the other thing is. And then the way that I completely get away from all of that stuff and just like get out of my own way and not actively work on a thing is to either make my castle in Minecraft bigger, or I go out on the patio and I make beer, which eventually serves the writing in the scriptural sense.
If I'm ever feeling like I have no talent and I cannot come up with one original idea and I just have no business working in any kind of entertainment, but I still want to have a song, I'll just go online and look for a creative, good, independent artist and just steal his arrangements. That's all I do. Yep. I have a big lawyer team, so... that's a joke.
Just not for you, women.
Just not for you.
No, that was a good joke before. No, I feel like I have I have like an app called Evernote. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's a really, really great app for note keeping and stuff. Yeah, the Evernote and the Snuggie.
Like you know you're in a group of nerds when Evernote gets the roof raised.
Give it up for my C compiler.
Yeah, that's right, babies. Inclusive standard libraries. All right, what's up?
What does Evernote do?
What's the deal with regular expressions?
Evernote is a note-keeping app that lets you tag notes, and you can have like different like notebooks, and inside that like a music one, and then inside that you can have tags of like video idea or whatever, like so you can have all your, everything that has to do with politics, everything that has to do with animals, everything that has to do, that kind of stuff.
No buzz marketing.
What's that?
No buzz marketing. I know you're you're a first round investor.
So what do you use it for? If you get an idea, you just tag it in your...
Yeah, right now I'm at probably the lowest productivity state that I've probably ever been in, and have been for, I'd say, let's see, my son is 3 years old and 3 months. Yeah, it's one, now that I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I just do not go and record my own stuff. Like, there's just no time at all. But I'm always, like, every idea that I think would be a funny song or like a thing, I just put in there. So I actually have a bunch of dumb ideas to try and get through someday, but there's no time to do it right now. But someday there will be. But the point is, like, to write down everything, like, just keep track of every idea that I think is worth working on, even if I can't do it right now. And someday, hopefully it's not, oh, there's this great thing about the current Pope, and then you retire.
Spoiler alert.
I don't have a lot to add. I think we're really lucky because we have each other, so we can just stare at each other until a song comes out. And
Doesn't always help.
Paul, stop staring at the double clicks.
So if you can get Aubrey to come to your house and make you tea, then you'll probably write a song, I guess that's what I'm saying. And sometimes being able to turn off Twitter is the best way to do it.
Especially when the double clicks are in your Twitter feed, and every month you get a little tweet saying, we just wrote 4 new songs, fun!
Do you speak for both double clicks?
Absolutely.
David, point of order. Before we continue, may I suggest that the center of this group of chairs move backward so that we make a semicircle this way so
Oh, yeah, good
we see
idea.
one another as we're talking?
Yeah.
You may suggest that.
I have suggested it.
Are you going to be the outlier?
I that's true, it still works. There's the next time, right? All right. Well, first of all, you guys answered the shit out of that question, so respect for that. That was amazing. You're up.